Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money with your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 218 of Screw the Commute podcast. I'm here with Kurt Ballash, and I met this guy at the Military Influencers Conference where I saw examples of his beautiful work, and I'm talking spectacularly beautiful work. He's got Ballash Woodworks, I think is the name of his outfit, and he's a great veteran, Army veteran. And so I'll introduce him to you in just a minute. And I hope you didn't miss episode 217. Now, also, you should be watching for episode 220. They're related. It's a two-part series on getting more people to show up at your webinars. So that was last Monday, and then next Monday will be part 2 of that. And it's really powerful tips on getting more people to show up. Our automation book is a freebie you get for listening to this podcast, and you can find it at screwthecommute.com/automate-free, screwthecommute.com/automate-free. And you'll get my automation book that shows you all the things I use to run my business. And just one of those tips, just one, has saved me 7.5 million keystrokes. And that's not an exaggeration. I just did a podcast a couple hours ago. The guy thought I was kidding. No, it's a massively great tool, and you'll get it for free in that book. So screwthecommute.com/automate-free. And while you're at it, go ahead to screwthecommute.com/app. That's APP, where you can get our podcast app that does all kinds of cool stuff in your cell phone and tablet. You can take us with you on the road. And we got complete instructions over there so you can see how to use all the fancy features. Okay, let's see. Our sponsor is the Internet Marketing Training Center of Virginia. It's a distance learning school which teaches legitimate techniques to make a great living, either working for someone else or starting your own online business, or both. And we got approved by the Department of Defense for a military spouse scholarship program. So we give, just without that, we give big scholarships to any military that's active duty or veteran and their immediate family, law enforcement, or first responders, because we thank you very much for keeping us safe and letting us do the things we do, because you're risking your butt to do it. So if you want to check that out, check out imtcva.org, imtcva.org. It's a distance learning school, so you can be anywhere in the world with an internet connection and do your studies. Now, if you're military, just put /military, and that'll go into details on that. All right, let's get to the main event. Kurt Ballash is a U.S. Army veteran and owner of Ballash Woodworks, a custom woodworking shop located in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He has found his next mission through the family trade that allows him to step into helping other transitioning soldiers identify their purpose after service through the Artisans Outreach program that he created. So, Kurt, are you ready to screw?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right. So how you doing, man? I haven't seen you since the conference, and it wasn't a really good day for you there. I understand.
I've been really well since the conference. The conference had a lot of great connections that I've been able to absorb a lot of knowledge from all the people that I connected with there. Watching and keeping up with all of your work since then, and just trying to learn as much as I can.
Well, yeah, but I think I did a speech and then you threw up, so that wasn't a good day for me.
Well, it wasn't directly related to you. I was having a migraine that day.
Only indirectly. Oh, yeah, I was sitting next to you, man. You were hurting that day.
Yeah, I blame it on the seaweed that Robert Garcia made me eat.
You'll have to listen to that to hear that. So that was it was a great event. I was so thrilled to meet you, and I'm still cherishing the beautiful coasters that you made. And I understood you slammed them out so fast it made your head spin, but they were still like 1,000 times nicer than I've ever seen.
Yeah, we hammered out about 200 coasters for the event within a week before heading up there. So
oh my goodness!
4 days we hammered that out. my employee was getting sick of sanding edges.
I'll bet. So tell us a little bit about the woodworking business. How did you get into it? Do you make custom things? Do people tell you what they want and then you build it, or you just build stuff on spec and then sell it to them? How do you run it?
So I'm a custom woodworking shop. So I advertise that I'm capable of creating anything out of wood, but I specialize in live edge and home furnishings.
What was the
such as
first part?
dining
What
tables-
was that first part? Live edge?
Live edge tables.
What does that
it-
mean exactly?
So a live edge table is where you keep the kind of natural bark edge to the slab of wood instead of dimensioning it down. So
I
it's
see.
really kind of in fad, and you see a lot of people doing those epoxy river pours in them.
Mm-hmm.
So we specialize in that kind of stuff, and I also do other kind of dining room tables. We just did a really nice big 4 foot by 10 foot farmhouse themed table. So it had the breadboards on the end to allow the expansion and contraction of the white oak surface. It was an absolute gorgeous piece. The legs were hand turned by another veteran that I do a lot of business with and I support. So I've surrounded myself with a lot of other veterans that are capable of handling the detailed work that I don't know how to do, like wood turning and wood carving.
Ah, I see. Any particular job that you're most proud of?
I would say that every job becomes its own kind of moment of pride, but I look forward to the challenges of the next one
Mhm.
versus looking back on the previous one and relishing that. We should be ready for the next thing, not focusing on the past. And that's kind of something that I take into my woodworking. All right, what's the next thing and how can we execute that one a little bit better?
Yep. Anyone particularly more difficult than another?
So I had one that pushed and challenged me a little bit beyond my comfort zone at the time. It was a lady's table, and what she wanted to create was a river in the middle. And unlike a lot of other rivers that we've done out of epoxy, she wanted to be able to see elements through it and have things floating within what we would call the water. So we
Mhm.
tinted this epoxy really dark, and we put some sand in the bottom, and we filled the bottom so it would look like dirt. And then we tinted the epoxy slight blue and we poured it in there. And throughout the drying stage, we dropped these different objects in there so they sat at different levels within the epoxy.
Oh,
So
wow.
some of the stones would be really close to the surface and other stones would be really close to the bottom. They had this gorgeous geode that came out of the surface of the epoxy and actually came above the surface of the table. It was the most challenging yet rewarding thing because it was at that moment that I realized that epoxy wasn't as intimidating as it seemed to be.
Now, do you keep a portfolio of every piece?
A lot of my pieces are done. We kind of put it all together on our social media, and my wife also does some final product photography
Mhm.
at the end of each project, and then we try to go back and get a picture of the piece within its home,
Oh, that's nice.
so we can show how that piece was placed. I think that's really important for families to see that piece within its home versus seeing it within my shop or my showroom, because you can't really start to connect with your piece of furniture and it doesn't really start to gain that family significance until it's in that home.
Are you ever called to the home before you make it to make suggestions on what would fit best?
So typically the process for a lot of custom pieces is I would come into your home and we would measure the space that it's occupying. If it's a dining room table, for example, we want to measure the total room and then we
Mhm.
take off the walking area
Right.
basically. And then we got to size the table correctly so you don't have issues with seating. I make a recommendation.
Mhm.
Sometimes the customer goes with that recommendation and other times they no, let's go a little bit bigger. It'll be okay. Don't worry about the seating issues in the space. So sometimes it allows me to cater the table to the individual, make sure that the piece fits their house. And some people know that they're going to be moving soon. So they're like, no, we want it a little bit bigger. So let's do that same design template, but just make it a little bit bigger. It allows me to go in and see what other types of pieces they got in their home, like what type of furnishings they bought, what is the details on that? Does it have different molding and profiles, or is it square, or is it modern? Is it rounded? What are the other elements within their home? So we try to match that piece of furniture to their style versus trying to force them into my style.
Right, right, right. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the business of it. Like if somebody wants a custom piece, I would assume you'd have to get the significant deposit, right?
Typically, the process is if I have to come into your home and do a consultation, it's $85 consultation charge. That covers my time, my gas. That lets me know the customer's serious.
Hmm.
And that also lets them know that I'm not just some random woodworker. I'm professional. I do
Right.
my job correctly. We go and we apply that to the final balance due. That
Okay.
goes into the actual design time that we go and we're making the component list for their piece. Once we get that design done and we get the component list built, that allows us to get a materials estimate. And I typically, what I do is if the project is over 5 grand, we break it down into 3 payment phases.
Hmm.
If it's underneath 5 grand, we do 2 payment phases. I'll take the materials deposit plus employee labor up front, and then I'll take the final portion at the end. And if it's a larger project that requires 3 phases, after the build is done, before we go into the finishing of the process, before we start putting paint or clear coats or stain on it, the second third would be due, and then the final third would be due upon completion.
Hmm.
And I always tell the customer it's upon successful and satisfactory completion of your project, not just completion, because there's a difference between done and being done to customer standards or customer satisfaction.
Right. Now, do they typically know a lot about wood and tell you what wood they want, or do you they rely on you to make those suggestions too?
I would say that I get a fair balance of people that have a decent understanding and education of lumber selection and choices, and people that are completely oblivious to lumber selection and choices for their applications. Sometimes it requires some education. That's part of that consultation, is that education phase where I hung the entire build process is going to take, the cost of materials, and just to kind of give them a frame of mind before leaving there so they can decide whether or not they want me to move forward with the design process.
Now, do you have sample like little wood blocks so that they can see, kind of get an idea what the thing will look like?
Typically, what I like to do is I bring some of my coasters, because my coasters are
Yeah.
made of different pieces of cutoffs and scraps, and allows me to show off the natural colors of woods that are available, from purples to reds to browns to blacks to creams to whites. If you can think of a color that you want to achieve on a piece of furniture, we can almost find an exact match out of that color in a natural lumber. And I try to push that on the customer versus trying to stain to match their color specifications.
Wow.
I like to bring out the natural beauty in wood versus cover it up underneath another color.
Got it. Now, how did you start the business? I mean, there's a lot of equipment involved in high-end woodworking, right?
Yes, so I was lucky enough that my grandfather had enough tooling when he passed that my father was able to take over his primary wood shop, and there was a whole nother set of tools at my grandfather's boat shop, and those were what I inherited. And
Oh,
it was
okay.
an
That's
entry level joiner, planer, table saw, radial arm saw, a few routers, just enough to kind of get going. Some of the tools dated back to like the 1960s, old Rockwell
mm-hmm.
hand machinery, like good made stuff where you still had to put oil in it. Like, so I inherited some well-made tooling, and I started applying those things after, like, during my transition from service. I started dabbling again. My wife wanted me to start making things. Let's try making this pallet table, and let's try making this. Me being me, I'm going, pallet table? That's not what my family creates. But it was enough to spark that kind of interest again, to get my mind going back down that road. Because for a while, I didn't see it as being a way for me to create a living. I seen it as just maybe a hobby.
So I got an idea that's crazy. Why don't you make a really like a mahogany pallet instead of taking a pallet and trying to make a like the guy that does my videos made a little fort for his kids out of pallets, but nobody's ever made a really high quality pallet.
Yeah, that would be kind of entertaining. Maybe I'm gonna do that as kind of this whimsical thing, like, "Ooh, look
Exactly.
at my mahogany, look at my mahogany palette over here." Like, "Wow, that's so nice." Yeah, it's even dovetailed together with slide
Yes.
dovetail.
Right.
The palette will never come apart.
Oh
That's a great idea.
yeah.
Um, so
So
that
go
kind of sparked that interest in about 2013. I got out of service. I started thinking that I was gonna go back and be a physician assistant. I got enrolled in Methodist University, and I started taking classes again to pursue medical, which was what I did in the military. Um, and things didn't line up right. Things always felt like I was going to have to do anatomy and physiology again after doing it 3 times at 3 separate
Oh,
institutions, one of
geez.
which had an in-depth cadaver lab. So I've already done that education. They wanted me to take it again in order to meet their
Right.
syllabus so they can get their money from me
Right.
is basically what it was. And it was at that moment that I kind of realized, like, all right, well, I'm kind of done with this. I'm not going to do A&P again. If that's what it takes, then it's not for me. I went back. I did some time as contracting as a medic overseas at an embassy, and then
So these are jobs, right? These are just
yeah, these are jobs that I had while I was building this woodworking thing. I was coming home from these away times and working on woodworking projects in the evenings or between classes or working on those projects between deployments. And throughout that time, I started finding that I was able to focus a lot better, and it was allowing my mind to work through a lot of the issues that had kind of been buried from years of service. When you're in service, you kind of don't deal with the things that you see and do. You kind of just throw them underneath the rug and you go on down the road with your battle buddy and everything's okay. But when you get out, you're kind of by yourself and you don't have anybody to kind of just drag you through the mud, so to speak, that you're just stuck sitting in the mud. So woodworking allowed me to kind of calm my mind and really learned how to forgive some of the people that had hurt me throughout service and betrayed me, as well as kind of work through some of that damage. And I wanted to do it more. I was finding joy. I was finding peace and connecting with something that I kind of ran from as a kid. It was really igniting this passion inside of me. And I slowly realized that this was my purpose. It was to create things with my hands.
so you're saying as a kid you didn't go to your grandfather and make boats with him or any of that stuff. You didn't do any of that?
I did sometime in the shop. I would go and hang out with my dad, and I would compare it to maybe my wife has to take off for a day and she's not been able to watch the kids during the summer, so the kids are coming to work with me for the day type
Okay.
thing. But I would do stuff while I was there. I would have my dad start nails for me. I remember at a young age, I would pull boards out of his scrap bin and I would pound nails. I was practicing working a hammer. I didn't see it. It was a way for me to stay occupied. And my
Right.
dad would come over, he'd start 20 nails, and half of them would end up flying across the shop
Right.
and hit on the back. But over time, it stopped happening, and I got more proficient with those tools. And as I gained proficiency with those tools, my dad got down this little box of hand tools, this hand drill press and a handsaw and some chisels, and let me work with those and experiment and learn the process of
Mhm.
creating things with very little. And I would sit there and I would watch him work, and I would watch my grandfather and him do this dance in the shop where at the end of this dance you were sitting back looking at this masterpiece of craftsmanship. And at a young age, I see my dad working so hard, and he would come home after a hard day and he would be like, "You need to go to college, so you don't got to work as hard as me." So he pushed me towards thinking that that wasn't a way to go, so to speak, through the ways that he would talk about his days. Versus now, I find joy in those things. And when I come inside and I share those experiences with my daughter, it's not, I had another long day at work. It's, I learned some things today, or I had a good day at work. This is what I created, or this is so beautiful. Come look at this. I think that was, and no fault to my father. I think that, there was a lot going on, and maybe that he wasn't the type of educational mindset that I'm in now and trying to teach my daughter, because I know that there's realistic avenue of self-employment entrepreneurship through woodworking. You can make a good living doing what I do, and you don't have to struggle to do it. You just got to be good, and you got to have attention to detail, and you got to have patience.
Yeah, and your dad was a generation that they're just hammering everybody. The colleges, you got to go to get a college education, just hammering that into people. And nowadays, I'm like totally against that because I even have a webinar on all the things colleges are doing. They're jacking up the fees outrageously, and the education is going down. They're actually inflating the grade point averages to make it look like they're doing a better job of teaching. And then the testing is showing that the kids are dumber. So,
Yeah. Meanwhile, our international testing rates are continuously dropping,
yeah,
and the Department of Education is doing what for our youth again?
exactly. So I'm all for homeschooling for parents that are capable of doing it, because I've never met a homeschool kid. I didn't, it wasn't great because, they're doing things that they, they're little sponges because they're being encouraged to do good things and things that they like. And, and they're not being exposed to a lot of the bad stuff in the public schools.
Yeah, we take a very active portion in teaching our children what we experience. And since both my wife and I are entrepreneurs, we've got our daughter running a lemonade stand out front of the
Yep.
house in the summer and trying to figure out if there's ways for her to attract customers during the winter with like hot chocolate and stuff like that. So we try to teach our kids to look at opportunities like that and kind of gain that spirit that we had when we were kids. Go grab the lawnmower and walk up and down the street and cut grass for a few dollars for the
Mm-hmm.
day. If you want to go to that movie or go with your friends to the arcade, then it's time for you to go earn that money. Like we didn't have, I didn't have an allowance for a little bit. I remember having an allowance for a very short period of time, but if we wanted money, we had to work for it. And if we didn't work for it, then we just didn't have money. And then, I started working with my stepfather instead of working with my dad in the wood shop because I wanted to be in AC buildings installing office furniture when I was 16, 17 years old. And man, I'm kicking myself in the butt. Like if I had another 2 years with my dad one-on-one and my grandfather at that time,
Mm-hmm.
like I'd be significantly further ahead in my knowledge base of woodworking than I am right now.
I did the same thing. My dad was a master electrician, and still I got to be very careful when I'm full on electricity. I
I
do
don't
it.
play around with electricity. Not at
Yeah, I
all.
mean, I do it, and I wired my whole trailer, and I wired my school, and stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
was extremely careful doing it. But when I was kind of chuckling when your dad was having you pound in nails, because my dad would go buy used lumber and make us pull out the nails and straighten them out and use them over again. So
Oh boy.
yeah, so I don't know how many thousands of nails I straightened out in my day. Tell us about your project. You've got this project to help other transitioning veterans.
So
Is that
through the
is that the
process of
correct characterization of what it is?
yeah, and I mean, we try to catch them in transition before they get to the point of not having a purpose. Like I try, a lot of what we do for veterans nowadays is almost reactive, and I'm trying to get ahead of the power curve by helping people transition from service with a plan, and maybe understanding that the plan doesn't have to include college. You don't have to go back and sit down with a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old kids and try to relate to life with a bunch of people that'll never relate to you. You can go and you can pick up a trade like woodworking or perhaps leatherworking or construction worker, and you can go earn an honest, good living. And a lot of us guys that are transitioning, or even soldiers in general that are transitioning, we like to do things with our hands. We didn't join the service because we want to sit around and do nothing. I mean, some of us joined it because there's college money on as the carrot on the end of the string and such. But for the most part, people like being and working with their hands and doing things other than sitting around in an AC building, punching a computer or answering phones for somebody else. And I think that's what I try to help them understand with the program that we're creating. It's called the Artisans Outreach. And what we want to do is we want to connect the artisans with the veterans while at the same time connecting the artisans and veterans in active duty with the community. Um, Letting people know that this is where your furniture comes from. This is the process that it goes through to be created, while at the same time offering an experience to come in and learn that process, get your hands on it, and maybe explore how it could be beneficial and therapeutic to you in your recovery process from post-traumatic stress or transitioning and kind of feeling like you lost that next mission, that further purpose. We want to try to catch it while they're transitioning so they transition into a purpose versus waiting until they get out and then they're lost and then trying to help them identify a purpose.
Now, where does this take place? How does this happen?
So right now we are working with active duty and veteran components in my shop right here behind my house. We got about a 700 square foot building right now, but we're looking at expanding by the 1st of January 2020 into a 4,000 square foot facility closer to downtown Fayetteville. And
This
we'll
is
actually,
Fort Bragg, right?
Yeah, this is right outside of Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, North Carolina. We're going to be moving into a 4,000 square foot facility and continuing to offer more resources and gathering places for entrepreneurs and places where we can host classes with leather makers to come in and learn other trades besides just woodworking. Because although I believe everybody should have some type of hands-on skill, woodworking may not be for everybody. Just like playing an instrument may not be for everybody. So I'd like in all hopes, I would like to bring more than just woodworking on board. We work with a leather maker. We've done one class. It went really successful. We got another one planned for first quarter 2020. We can plan to continue those every quarter, potentially more frequently as the demand increases. We teach active duty and military veterans and their family members how to create their own tables. We just try to find a way to get their hands busy and give them a purpose to come together with somebody else and connect and possibly share those experiences.
Yeah, a Green Beret buddy of mine makes knives, really, really nice knives. And he also does stuff with horses. So I think it's called equine therapy for returning vets and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things that they could do and make beautiful stuff. But I'm thinking, like, boy, if he had me in the woodworking class, you'd like say, oh my God, we got to get this guy something else to do. I bought a radio arm saw years and years ago and tried to glue two pieces together, edge to edge, and it all warped all over the place. It wasn't so good.
But it's okay that you don't, or you may not find the ease in applying the skills of woodworking, because not everybody's meant to be a woodworker. There's some people out there that are meant to be potters or glass blowers or artists. I mean, I think there's a lot of other modes of creativity that you can explore. And it doesn't have to be working around power tools that could potentially sever a limb. Like, I understand that could possibly be a concern for some people. But you know what is pretty safe? Getting on a wheel and turning some clay into some small bowls or vases or coffee cups or something along that line. Like, our goal is to create a center where all of these trades are condensed and then offered back to those transitioning soldiers, those veterans, as well as their family members, to come in and explore those trades, to potentially see that, hey, I don't have to go and force myself into fitting in this, IT job that I heard about on the radio, because it sounds so alluring, free transition assistance into the IT field. Well, then you're regretting your life 3 years later because you're sitting there answering phones for some technical company.
Right.
You're not really working in internet technology like you thought you would be. You're not going in there and you're not doing real cybersecurity or whatever it is. We want you to explore every modality. And even if you don't pick this up as a profession, maybe this is just something for you to explore your creativity in the safety of your home instead of resorting to other modes of compensating and dealing with those things that you had to do while serving. Like, instead of picking up the beer or the medication or whatever it is, what if you went out to your garage and you made a coffee cup or you turned a pen? And then at the end of the night, you've created something and you had a time to mentally relax and let go and concentrate on something and not worry about all the normal stresses of day-to-day life. Time and time again, I hear how relaxing it is just to get out there and run the sander, because you can let your mind go. The white noise drowns out the extra noise in your head, and it allows you to work through a lot of those issues a lot easier.
But Kurt, you saw me at the event. I'm not going to let you get away with not making ebooks about what you do and selling it around the world for extra money. Yeah, you can't get away from that, man.
We are working on it, Tom. After I left that conference, I was ignited. I had a passion. It's coming. Unfortunately, I don't have two of me, so I can't execute all of my ideas so quickly. My wife, my teammate, my partner, she is amazing, and it's hard for her to keep up with me sometimes, just because there's so many great ideas that I was able to absorb and learn from guys like you, and sitting down with Steven and Lane and all these other great guys that had really good, insightful things to say, that really kind of sparked well, how can I really make this a little bit bigger than just me and my business? Like Ballash Woodworks is great. We do great work, but how can we make this bigger than Ballash Woodworks? How can we make a bigger difference, a bigger impact, make people around us see more than just the pieces that we create, but see
That's
the
what I want to have a
community?
part of. How old's your child?
I have four children. My oldest is in college, and I have a 14, a 13, and then my youngest, she is 8 years old. Well,
Well,
eight in
she's
about a few days.
there you go. You got a perfect internet workforce right there that knows more than I'll ever know about computers.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like the children, the one that's in college, she's really tasked out there. I don't want to ever try to interfere with her ability to pursue the arts, which
She's
is what
too
she
old.
loves.
She's over the hill. The
Yeah,
8-year-old's
the 8 year old's the one that needs to start trading on the
yeah,
social media. Get her on
exactly.
Snapchat.
So we got to take a brief sponsor break here. When we come back, we're going to ask Kurt what's a typical day look like for him. And I'm real interested in he says January 1st he's going to be in a building 5 times bigger than what he is. So that's going to be cool. But and then we'll ask him how he stays motivated. So folks, I want to tell you about my 24-week intensive pro speaking mentor program where I take you from where you are to a much higher level pro speaker. And if you're not one, if you're just a beginner, that's even better because I don't have to clean up the messes that you made. It'd be like me taking a piece that I've already worked on to Kurt and saying, help me fix this, rather than just starting and doing it right. So there's several different levels, including a level that teaches my famous back of the room selling technique where I've made millions of dollars without being obnoxious, I might add, like many sales speakers are. So check that out at screwthecommute.com/pro speaking. And to let me know you heard it on Screw the Commute podcast, use coupon code SPEAK10, like SPEAK10 for 10% off whichever package you choose. And I really want to help turn you into a great and busy pro speaker. So let's get back to the main event. Kurt Ballash from Ballash Woodworks is here, and he's expanding into a gigantic building. He's helping a lot of veterans. And when I was talking to him that last ad, I was thinking about this sign I saw in a gas station, Kurt. It said, labor $60 an hour, but $120 an hour if you worked on it first.
Yeah,
So
cleaning up other people's messes.
exactly. So anyway, tell us what a typical day looks like for you. Do you get up early? You still work out? What do you do?
I usually wake up around 5:30 to my
Wow.
wife's first alarm. And I have my coffee pot set to auto brew to start brewing at 5:30.
Oh, there you
So
go.
that starts stirring in bed around 5:30. I'm out of bed usually 5:45, 6 o'clock. Um, I usually sit down, I'll drink a cup of coffee, help get the kids up and going, help get my wife out the door with them. And then I have about a 30-minute window where if I was going to go for a run or if I was going to do some extra time on the computer administration task, I would take that. And then usually from about 7:15 to 8 o'clock, I have time with my wife. I sit down with her while she's eating her breakfast, and I wait for my employee to show up at 8, and we talk about kind of some of the things that we have to do for the day, or maybe just spend a few minutes together talking about stuff like how much are we going to spend for each kid on Christmas or whatever it is. And from about 8 o'clock till noon, we work. Usually in the morning is when I do a lot of my shop time. I keep my mornings, I try to stay inside the shop. And then my afternoons, I usually dedicate towards if I need to get out and do customer interactions, consultations. If I need to go drop off a piece, that's done in the afternoon. But I try to wrap up in the shop and with work around 5 o'clock and get home to the family to eat dinner and see how the kids are doing and spend some time with them. Unfortunately, at this season, right leading up to about Christmas, I would say shortly middle of November through about Christmas, sometimes I'm required to work some late nights, so I have to work a little bit later than that. But for the most part, we stay in the shop. I take a break, 15-minute break every 2 hours, and we take about a half hour for lunch. So we make sure that we keep the morale high and just take good work rest cycles and give the guys a chance to get on the phone and talk to their spouse a little bit and just kind of remember that everybody there is human and they're not a machine. So we can't just work for 8 hours straight.
So are they actual employees or contractors, or what is their business?
So this first year of hiring, we have one employee that's stuck through the year, and he is a 1099 this first year. We'll actually be bringing him on formal payroll on the 1st of January once we get all of our proper insurances set up
Hmm.
for like workers' comp policies, et
Right.
cetera. Um, so as of right now, we have throughout the year, I've had a couple other guys that came in and have worked with me for a couple months and then left for one reason or another. Either they didn't have the attention to detail that I required, or it just wasn't them. Some people, when you tell them the same object for 16 hours in a week, and that's half of their work week, it's hard for them to stay motivated if they're really not in it for the woodworking aspect. So
Right.
that's
Right.
one of the hiring challenges that I have.
Yeah, a lot of younger people. It's a lot of companies, air conditioning, plumbing. They're getting hard to find interns and apprentices because people aren't going into those jobs as much anymore.
Yeah, I read a news article. It might some article, a journal entry or something that was talking about how at one point, like 1 in 4 students had pursued some type of shop class in high school, and right now it's averaging like 1 in 6. So they've seen this drastic drop
Hmm.
in people wanting to attend those types of programs because it's almost seem as antiquated, replaceable. We got machines that'll make that stuff. Why do you need to do that? Well, I think that that's part of what has led to this decline in the trades, and now we're almost at this crisis where we're having trouble finding people to fill the trades.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I heard this one guy say, he says, the only thing I learned in shop class was how to call for estimates. so, so this, people can't do anything anymore. That's the big complaint I have when I look at today's youth. They just can't, they barely can exist. If their tire's flat, they're like stuck forever until AAA gets there,
Or
So,
they throw it away and get a new
or
tire.
get a new tire. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So, um, but anyway, tell everybody how they can find out more about your program. Now, can you work with anybody that wants some woodworking that's not in your service area there?
So we can offer some phone and consultation type stuff over the phone, and I've done some stuff with other veteran woodworking businesses in the past where we get on the phone and I kind of walk them through what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really hard to teach somebody woodworking without having them there to teach them how to hold the material or handle the material
Well,
right.
I'm actually talking about if somebody wants to buy a custom piece.
Oh, I apologize. So they can find out more about Ballash Woodworks at www.ballashwoodworks.com. We
Spell it
have
for
our
them. Spell it.
BALLASHWOODWORKS.com. That's ballashwoodworks.com. From there, you could see that we have our store up and running. There's a little about me section if you want to kind of understand what woodworking kind of means to me and my journey from running from woodworking to really pressing in and identifying woodworking as my purpose. There's also a tab on there, ballashwoodworks.com/outreach, where you can learn a little bit about what we do within our walls to help other people learn the woodworking trade and transition out of service into their own purpose. And through our store, you can check out our amazing cutting boards, our coasters. We have some cigar accessories like we call them the R&R rest. It has a perfect little cup holder for your Scotch glass and a little cigar rest, so it doesn't roll off the edge of your armchair when you're sitting down with your buddies. We got rolling pins, some general kitchen goods and home decor items. My wife has got some prints of some magnolias and some really awesome chicken pictures that she took of them in some monocles and top hats and just some amazing stuff that, it fits kind of into that Southern charm, that
Mm-hmm.
country elegance, kind of humorous style of artwork that's great for any home. Throw it up in your bathroom and it's sure to catch a laugh every time someone goes to do
Beautiful.
their thing. Yeah,
So
and
go ahead.
we're trying to add a lot more like personality to our site, as far as we acknowledge that the pieces that we create last generations. So we want people to understand that when you buy a piece of woodworking from us, you're buying an investment that allows you to create memories around that piece. A $50 rolling pin is one that, I still have my grandmother's rolling pin. When we go up to my dad's house, it's like, oh, there's grandma's rolling pin. Like those things mean something. The memories mean nobody can ever come to throw that stuff away because the memories that you had rolling out the noodles or whatever it was. So what we try to tell people is that you're buying the lasting generations of wood. As long as you take care of this stuff, these are going to be pieces that you can pass on to your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren.
All right. So now are you moving all your equipment to this new building or just having a new place to do the transition work?
We're moving Ballash Woodworks to the new location.
Okay.
We're also joining forces with another company as well that does knife making. He's a pretty talented dude. He's got a pretty large social media following, but he's got a lot of equipment that he can't fit in his small space. He's currently operating out of his garage like I am, and he's looking for the next thing. So we're going to combine forces. We're going to have welding, blacksmithing. We're going to have a power press.
Wow.
A power press and a power roller on there as well. So it allow us to start bringing in knife makers to teach classes there. Like we're trying to combine forces. So Ballash Woodworks will own the place, but Artisans Outreach is going to be operating through the place. We're going to be using that as a conduit to start growing this new organism, so to speak.
This is going to go big. 4,000 feet won't be enough pretty soon.
We're currently looking at another idea here in town. It's about 50,000 square feet and combining with a lot more ideas and trying to see how we can make it work. But due to, I'm not a developer. I've never worked with any project that size. I'm surrounding myself with advisors that can help us gather that larger vision and grow into that larger space.
No, it's a great, second mission you're on, that's for sure. So thanks so much, man, for taking the time to tell us your story.
Thank you very much, Tom, for having me on and giving me the platform to share a little bit of my passion.
Absolutely. So everybody check out, this is episode 218. So anytime you want to go to a direct episode, you go to screwthecommute.com/218. We'll have links to all Kurt's stuff in the show notes. You want to check out all the things he mentioned that are just in his store because you can buy them no matter where you are. And the work is just exquisite. I've seen it personally. So thanks, Kurt. And everybody, will catch you on the next episode. See you later.